Welcome to Momentum, a podcast breaking down the biggest issues facing women's sports, brought to you by Mecca Empower. I'm Kat Sasso, and each week I will be joined by experts and athletes as we dive deep into the world of women's sports and all the triumphs and trials that exist within them. Joining me this week as we dive headfirst into the world of motorsport is Imogen Radburn. But before we jump into the driver's seat with Imogen, I'd better go get ready. There are no physical reasons preventing women from racing in Formula One, so why aren't there any women racing? The numbers speak for themselves. Just 5 women have ever entered a World Championship Grand Prix, and only 2 have actually raced. Since Giovanna Amati in the early 90s, no woman has competed in an F1 race, despite a few notable figures like Maria Teresa De Filippi in 58-59 and Lella Lombardi in the mid-70s. Susie Wolff came closest in 2014, participating in practice session, and she now leads the F1 Academy, aiming for a woman to race in F1 by 2030. Women are also making strides behind the scenes with figures like Manisha Kaltenborn and Claire Williams in leadership roles. Research shows there's no physical barriers to women in F1. Being smaller and lighter could even be an advantage. The real issues are cultural and financial. Women face higher dropout rates with fewer progressing to higher levels like Formula and GT racing. The cost of entry is another major obstacle, as is a lack of sponsorship and the hostility women sometimes face from male drivers. Media representation and the history of hypersexualizing women in motorsport add to the challenge, but efforts like the F1 Academy and ongoing initiatives aim to change this, paving the way for a more inclusive future. Imogen, your story is an absolutely amazing one, but can you tell me how you got started in the world of motorsport?
Look, it's a bit of a funny story how I got started. So I was a dancer for 12 years, competitively doing tryouts every weekend for troops and competitions and dancing on cruise boats and the whole shazam. And then it all sort of changed and I didn't really enjoy dancing that much and it felt like a bit of a chore, and Mum was like, no, just keep going at it. Like, this is awesome. And then one day I just said, no, I'm done. I want to go to a car race. Let's go to a car race. Then I got kicked out of the dance school I was at. So I was like, okay, I'm going full in. So then I was also competitively swimming at the same time, wanting to be an Olympian. And at the age of 12, I started having really, really bad shoulder issues. And they said, look, you could have to need a shoulder reconstruction if you want to be an Olympian, because I was training 3 times a week. And then sadly, my swimming coach's husband passed away. So she shut down shop. And it sort of gave me an opportunity to go, okay, what do I actually want to do really badly? And I was always riding motorbikes and I wanted to race motorbikes. So I asked Mum and Dad, can I just race motorbikes? And they were like, no way. Because I was riding before and after school because Dad owns a transport company. So I'd always been around it. And then I went and tried go-karting, like the high go-karts that anyone can go and do. And I was always doing it on a Wednesday night with one of my best mates, Lockie, at the age of, I think, we were 12. And we do it every Wednesday night for a whole school term. And I got most improved and I think 9th overall versus everyone that worked there. So I was pretty happy and we're like, okay, let's give this an actual shot. And they told us the figures of, oh, you're going to spend this much on go-karting, and Dad's like, no, we won't. And then the next 4 years later, at the age of 15, I got started in karting and I managed to do that 2 years. First year, I'd won 2 state championships. So we're like, okay, we better keep going. Second year wasn't my greatest year. I was going for a 3rd one, got taken out, didn't really go to plan. But then I had a special person called Cameron Hill come and watch me, which I didn't know who he was. I didn't know that he was there. And that was a weekend that I got taken out. And he rang my dad the next day and said, I want her in my Formula Ford team. I had no idea what Formula Ford was. I thought he was a scam. And I was like, Dad, I'm not ready for this. Like, I've been karting for 2 years. Everyone else has been karting 10 or 12 years. And then it all sort of went from there. Cameron took me under his wing. And now I'm in F4. After doing 2 years in Formula Ford as well. So I've only been in motorsport for 4 years, but it feels like forever already. And yeah, now I'm sort of on my pathway to the F1 Academy.
That is an incredible story. So for people who don't know too much about motorsport, can you explain, the tiers of motorsport for anyone who doesn't really, pay much attention?
Yeah, so there's sort of 2 ways in motorsport that you can go. Everyone starts in karting, no matter what. The people that usually don't, they usually start in cars fairly late, which some people make it, some people don't. And then you got 2 ways that you can go, which are single-seaters, which are your Formula cars, your F1 cars, F2, F3. Or you can go supercars, which is Australia's biggest thing here. And to go down the Formula route, for me, I've done Formula Ford for 2 years. Then you sort of go to F4. And if you're a boy, it's a bit harder because you have to be in Europe by the age of 15 to be able to make it to F1. And then you go up the ranks of like F3, F2, F1, or you go F4 FRECA, which is Formula Regional, F3, F2, or you can do the supercar route, which is usually either Formula Ford or Toyota 86, and then you step up your way through either Porsche or Super 2, which is below supercars.
That's so awesome. And, you know, we don't see a whole lot of women in motorsport, and the biggest barrier to the entry of women in motorsport, it's mainly cultural, and women are the most likely to drop out of racing at a 3 times higher rate than men. When did you, well, I mean, my first question is, was there any, if there was there any girls around when you were kind of starting out in the motorsport world?
Yeah, so when I was karting, there was more girls coming through. Doesn't mean they were as nice as some of the boys. I clashed heads with one in particular, and it was pretty hard. Like, their dad was abusing me. Their dad would come and punch my dad in the back. They'd push my cart to make sure something broke. Like, it was pretty hard. And as much as some of the boys were hard as well, the girls were just as bad. So I sort of just stood my own way and just made my own path. And yeah, I think coming up the ranks now, there's not as many women you see in cars compared to karting. Like, I'm the only Australian one in any Formula Academy or class this year at all. Formula Ford, I was the only girl. So there's a lot of positives and a lot of negatives. You don't really feel like you can lean on someone. However, the boys know that you're just there to race just like them. And I sort of have this thing is, once the race suit and once the helmet's on, you wouldn't know that I'm a girl.
Yeah.
My helmet isn't bright pink. My helmet and my car isn't bright pink either. It's bright green, so it's totally different. And the people that only know me as a girl is if I have my helmet off and my hair out, or they see up the side of my car which says that sisters at race, because my little sister races as well and used to. So it's the only way that people can distinguish if I'm a girl. But I think it's really important to see so many girls coming through, whether they're drivers or a lot of girls at the moment are going engineering and media, which is awesome to see. I do a pathway program with Girls on Track for Motorsport Australia, which we have 60 girls come through on particular weekends, and you get to sort of share your story, just persuade them into which way they want to go, whether it's media, engineering, physio, whatever sort of department you can think of outside of a normal life. Motorsport has it, so it's pretty empowering to see so many more women coming in.
Yeah. And what's kind of made you push through and continue racing?
I guess I want to be that person that people can look up to, especially at the moment, not being many girls. There's not one girl in supercars at the moment. There's not one girl in Super 2. There's a few girls in Toyota 86. There's not one girl in the Formula pathway. So being that person that people can come and chat to, they can message me anytime, they can call me, they can LinkedIn me, they can email me. I guess just being that person that anyone can lean off and inspiring others to join, whether they're in karting or they've got no idea how to get into it. I guess that's just what's kept me going, no matter what I've sort of faced so far.
And, you know, historically, sports are segregated for a reason, but motorsports is one of those sports that there's no reason why men and women can't race together. There's no physical difference. If anything, sometimes women have got a bit of an advantage in racing.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is that there's such a barrier for women in motorsports?
I think, not being a stereotypical person, but I think a lot of women are worried to verse the boys, which totally understandable. You think, oh, they're so much bigger than me, they're stronger than me. But little do they know that our brains are a lot smarter at the younger ages than the boys. And yeah, the boys always crash, but the crashes that I've had is from someone else running into me. It's not been me running into someone else or an issue like that. Like, we were under a safety car once, which you're meant to only be doing 80 Ks. One guy came up behind me at 150, just out of nowhere, and just ran into the back of me, and that was me out. So, like, having that brain development that us girls have is really a bonus, and having the marketable sort of aspect as well, that people love women as well. They're a lot more easier to talk to than the males, or the women love it a lot more. So I think that's something important to consider, that it's not always as scary as people think it's going to be. And that's one of the biggest barriers I think that girls have in a male-dominated sport.
And since you started, have you noticed much of a cultural shift in the way that you are treated within the sport? Like, have you noticed that maybe, it's getting a bit easier in terms of like gender balance, or is it getting a little bit harder? Have you noticed any shift?
I think it's definitely getting a bit better. I'd still say, like, I don't see in cars their dads coming up behind them and being like, "Why did the girl beat you?" That I used to see a lot in karting. Whether that's just me ignoring it and just not noticing it, I don't know. But I think there's been a sort of a positive change with the pathways that are coming about of women empowerment and podcasts like these allowing women to know what's going on or how they can get involved. But I think there's still a little bit of a negative stigma around being a girl, where the teams that I've been in have loved having me a part of it because I just listen. I don't think that I know everything like some of the boys in my team or some of the boys that I verse. So it makes it that little bit easier for engineers or mechanics and even coaches just to be like, okay, no worries. You've read what we've said and you're going to go perform it, and straight away out the gate, that's what happens. With some people, they don't. And it's sort of that whole thing of, come on, we need to like be a bit more like him and listen, or just those little things that girls have over the boys, I guess.
Yeah. And, cost is obviously a huge barrier when it comes to women in motorsport because it's so much harder to find sponsorship, to get money. How difficult has it been for you to kind of fund your career up until this point?
I would say it's been very difficult. I'm lucky to have my parents' support, but you can't keep getting your parents just to fork out the money like anything. We're pretty much paying big house deposits for $1 million houses every year or even more. So starting out in karting, you spend around that 100,000, and then it keeps going up. Formula Ford, it's around that 200,000. Formula 4, it's about that 400,000. And then once you start going overseas, it gets even higher and higher. So I think I've been pretty lucky to have some main sponsors like Harvey Norman that are really women-empowered companies. They've helped me a lot, and having them by my side has been incredible. Yeah, like it took me 5 years to build a partnership with them, but now that I've got a partnership with them, it's absolutely incredible. And seeing other women in other sports as well, I can meet them through that partnership and be able to expand from there. But it's definitely a big barrier. As much as we can be as marketable, there's also people out there that don't believe in women in sport compared to the boys, or they think that we're going to chicken out or not give it a good go, or we're not there to win. So I think that's a bit hard. But in saying that, there's also a lot of companies out there that are really looking forward to giving girls a chance, and it's just finding those particular companies that want to back you just as much as everyone else.
And how difficult is it to actually get those brands to, believe in you and believe in your ability and believe in your place in the sport?
I would say the easiest way to put it is everyone thinks a race car driver gets to go and race a car and have all this fun. But our life, it's about 5% driving. All the rest is sponsorship, doing media days, doing events, training. And the hardest bit is finding that money. I can't tell you how many emails I've sent this week, because I reckon it'll be over 200, just reaching out to brands and finding people and searching on LinkedIn of who's a marketing manager that I could meet, or going to certain events to try and meet people, especially women empowerment companies. But it's definitely a difficult situation, and the amount of proposals you make, and you're always updating the website just to stand out. So
how do you think that can change? What do you think needs to be done in order for women to have more of a go, like to have more of a chance to be able to make their way in motorsport?
I guess sort of just keeping that awareness around that girls can do it just as much as the boys, and if you're not going to give it a go, you won't know.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen an influx in initiatives like Discover Your Drive, Girls on Track, and the Women in Sport Motorsport Mentorship Program in recent years. How do you think this has helped to bring more women into motorsport, or give them the confidence to know that there is a place for them?
I think working directly with Girls on Track at the moment, it's incredible. Every month there's another 60 women involved. So I guess it's sort of just keeping those programs alive and knowing that girls can do it just as much as the boys.
How important do you think it is to be able to see, for the younger generation to be able to see, hey, girls can actually do this? I can visually see there's a woman in motorsport, there's a female racer. How important do you think that is for that younger generation to be able to see that they can do it?
I think My favourite quote is, people go, if you can't see it, you can't be it, where it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I think having particular people out there that they can actually look up to and go, oh, wow, I could be like them, is so important. And if you're not the person doing it and you're just on the sidelines going, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, it's not helping the younger generation come through. So I guess that's why I'm pushed so hard to do what I do, because I want to be that person that these younger generations can look up to.
And the W Series, which was replaced by F1 Academy, it copped lots of criticism from female drivers like Sophia Florsch for being a step back in motorsport. How do you think that, you can balance these female-focused initiatives without segregating women and kind of pushing the movement back?
I guess it all depends on how you sort of see it. I'm not one that loves diverse girls, but the opportunities coming from these programs is insane. You can't get it anywhere else. So I think these programs are an incredible chance to give a girl a go. And yeah, it could be a back step. However, there's a lot of opportunities coming from them that can be a forward step. So they've now recently introduced the women that wins the championship, they will now get a chance in Freckle, which is a step up. So as much as people go, oh, it's a back step, it's a perfect opportunity for someone new or someone that hasn't driven an F4 car that's wanting to make the opportunity to go forward to give it a go. And these girls that are in the other categories, it might be a back step for them, but they should be able to perform, in which they'll be able to win the championship and keep moving forward. So I think it's just how you sort of see it and the mindset you go about it. But I think the academy is an incredible thing at the moment that's going on, and there's so much financial backing, and there's incredible teams out there, and some of these girls have got incredible lives coming up just from how they've marketed themselves. Bianca's a perfect one. She's from the Philippines and 1.5 million followers on Instagram, and she's up there and the most marketable person in the world. So those opportunities, some people might see them as a back step, but other people will see them as a forward step, and the people that do see it as a forward step, they're the ones that shine. So I guess it's just taking those opportunities and running with it.
Yeah, it's just taking it and benefiting from what you can, really.
Yeah.
A lot of fans have said that media coverage reinforces the gender stereotypes within motorsports, and it kind of deters women and female participants. What do you think would be the biggest problem in media surrounding motorsport and, it being a mixed gender sport?
I think we love the media, but then you sometimes hate the media because they can sort of cross-relate things. But I think it's important how these girls go about on the media. My biggest thing is, if you don't want your grandparents to see it online, don't post it. Which some girls have made that mistake, and it's ruined their whole careers, which the media can then make it into a big scenario, which we've had one of our fellow Aussie girls do that. And look, she's thriving now and she's doing what she wants now, and she's making the most out of driving her own race car for herself. But in saying that, that did affect a lot of women like myself getting Harvey Norman on board for 5 years. So I think it's just important that us girls remember that, yeah, we're in a male-dominated sport, but we also need to take these opportunities and not try and ruin them for others or make it a bit harder. I think it's just everyone sticking together.
Yeah, and you've said that competing with and against women in the past has been quite difficult for you. What do you think needs to change in order for it to become a place where women can actually support each other and help each other, improve and get to places where they've never been previously?
I think it's just remembering that we're all in it together, whether you want to be or not. You're all out there versing each other, but when you're off the track, you're all mostly friends. I think that's my biggest thing. Yeah, you might not get along with the track or something might go wrong, but if you're willing to move past it, you're going to have to. You're going to see these people around all the time. So I'd rather not burn bridges, and you might just have to have a chat to that person and just be like, oh, look, there's something gone wrong, or etc. And it can be all fixed. And then it's women empowering women again. But it's just remembering that we're all on this same planet together. No one's better than someone just because they've beat them or just because they're at this level. I think that's my biggest thing, is when I'm coaching these younger girls, just to make them remember that you've got to be pretty down to earth. So you can't just think that you're the best and have this massive ego, because people start walking away and not wanting to support you. So I think that's my biggest thing. And I always just remind myself that there's someone always better out there. If there's not, what are you doing? Like, you keep being better then. So I think that's always important. And I think that's just one thing that girls can focus on. And it's always been the whole girls love to be better than one another, but it's just being that down-to-earth person, because it makes you look better. And as people say, just kill them with kindness rather than just being the rude one.
Yeah. And motorsport is renowned for all of its rivalries, whether, like, you know, we've seen it over the years, especially in Formula One. It's nothing new. It's since the dawn of time, it's always been a thing. But I think it's difficult for people to kind of comprehend that girls can also be like that with each other. I think we see women's sports where women are so, you know, they empower one another and they support one another. But I think sometimes people forget that, you know, rivalries do exist and things like this will happen. But how do you think you can continue to have those rivalries but also have a healthy balance off the racetrack?
I think some main ones that I see, there's some people that I may have not gotten along with in the past, but then I've had to work with them. And now all of a sudden we all get along. But it's just, yeah, like I said before, just being that down-to-earth person rather than just thinking that you're better than someone else. That can change a lot. It's all in the mindset. If you're willing to make the first conversation, you're going to look better than the other person. So I think that's just something that we have to remember, and to help people get along better. Whether you're a guy or a girl, it's sort of the same thing. The boys can be just as bad. But yeah, I think it's important for us girls to stick it together rather than going, oh, but she's doing this better than me, but I'm better than that. It's just sort of going, okay, how can we improve together rather than going against each other all the time? Because there's opportunities out there that girls might all need to be in this one team together, and there could be 4 female drivers in the car, in which whether you all get along or not, you've got one job to do, so you need to make sure you do it to the best. And having an issue with someone or not getting along with another female competitor, that could ruin it, or that could ruin your opportunity to be asked to be in that team.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to remember, that no matter what, someone's always watching.
And moving forward now, what would you like to see change? Like, in your perfect world, in your perfect motorsport world in Australia, what would you like to see change? What would you like to stay the same? Like, what difference do you want to see?
I think just having more female drivers around. There's a lot in karting, which is great because they're all younger, but then they sort of get to the age of 13, 14, 15. People at school start finding out, then they start getting bullied. I've been through the whole shenanigans. Right from year 7 to year 12, I always got something pulled out of me because, oh, you're a race car driver, you want to be a race car driver, or you hang around the boys too much, or you're in love with the boys, but it's like, no, I get along with them better. So I think it's just making that sort of barrier that's up at the moment, of especially people that are getting bullied by females or males because they want to be in a male-dominated industry or sport. I think it's really important that that sort of stops, and it's sort of an awareness that needs to be brought together by schools, I think, especially. I go back to my school now and we do these important chats, and just to help other people get through it, because both my sister and I have been through it. And you just want to sort of see it stop happening, because that's why a lot of kids are stopping these sports or not believing that they can go do a trade or apprenticeship because they're going to get it paid out of them. So I think that's in the ideal world, the whole bullying behind that sort of stops, and it's sort of everyone just gets along.
And you've mentioned your sister and you guys were racing. How important was it for you to be able to have her to kind of lean on and have that relationship?
I think she's my little rock. Whether everything goes right, everything goes wrong, she's my number one person I go to. So she's 2 years younger than me, but we're inseparable. You'd think that we're the same person. It's scary. Mum and Dad are like, Addie, you need to go do your own thing. But she just wants to be like me, and I just want to be like her. And we sort of share everything together, where we're the same height, we're the same size. So clothing, it's just, it's Immy and Addie. It's not just Immy's. So I think having her to lean on has been an incredible support, and having someone your sort of age and having that person that you can bounce off, whether I'm home or away. I know she struggled with me being away recently, so I've been away for about 20 weeks just on the road, coming home for 1 or 2 days every second week, third week. That she struggled with that a lot. But even just being able to have that phone call or FaceTime, it all helps. And she's basically my best friend. She's the one that's always stood by me, whether we argue or not. She's always the person there. So
Yeah, it's such an important relationship to have. And, you know, for you moving forward now, what comes next for you? Like, what are your goals? What would you like to, where would you like to see yourself?
my 10-year goals is to be in IndyCar. It's just the most realistic goal, IndyCar or supercars. Either one, I don't really mind, but I'd love to be in the US racing. There's a lot of opportunities over there. Europe's a bit hard and difficult. However, by 2026, I want to be the first female from Australia to be in that F1 Academy. I tried for next year and then all the seats were full just in time. So I head to New Zealand to test with an F1 Academy team next week to try and get that seat for 2026 or try and get a wild card for next year. But it's just sort of giving everything a go. And I never thought I would go down the Formula route and continue. I thought after Formula Ford, I was going to make the switch into supercars and go down the Porsche route and see if I could get a factory drive in Porsche. But I guess every opportunity just changes every day for me. I get phone calls all the time just saying, oh, could you be in our team, blah, blah, blah. So I think the IndyCar or the supercars is my dream at the moment. And just making that pathway a bit easier and being that person that people can bounce off is where I want to be in the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, it would be really awesome to, you know, watch your career and see where you end up because let's be real, like I think it's amazing to see women in such a male-dominated space and it's so important to see more women in that space. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Before I let you go though, I like to give all of my guests a chance to highlight a woman in sport who has inspired them, whether it be lately or whether it be like all time. Is there anyone who you kind of look at and think, wow, like they're awesome?
I think I've got sort of two. Rihanna Crane, who she's a media presenter in supercars. I've always looked up to her. She recently just had a little boy dash and she's still continued work. She's still been on the presenter. She's still been travelling around. And I was lucky enough to do an interview with her this year. And it was sort of like a starstruck moment of finally this has happened. So I think that's really cool. But also Shania Jack, the swimmer, obviously wanting to be a swimmer all my life. I sort of looked up to her. But I think her story recently really just highlights that everything could go wrong and it not be your fault. But if you fight back, you can just go as good and if not better. So I think sort of having that connection sort of made with her when she started following me on Instagram was like a, oh my goodness sort of moment. But we sort of make jokes now that she's friends with one of the guys I'm friends with that races. And I guess sort of just having those sort of people that you can look up to, but also remember that you can bounce off these people as well. You don't have to just look up to them, but you can also reach out to them. So I think they're my two main females that I really look up to at the moment.
That's really awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Imogen,
you.
for joining me today. And thank you to everyone at home for watching. Please make sure that you subscribe, leave us a review, and let us know who you want to see next time on Momentum.